The alarm screamed through the research station at 3:47 hours and knew she had made a terrible mistake. She stared at the impossible thing floating in her containment field. It looked like a tear in space itself, edges shimmering with light that shouldn't exist. The readings on her screen made no sense. Infinite energy output, zero mass, stable quantum entanglement across 7 dimensions that the galaxy's best physicists swore couldn't be accessed by organic minds. She had done it by accident. "Computer, run diagnostic on containment field stability," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Containment holding at 100%. No decay detected. Warning, energy signature is broadcasting across all known frequencies." Swore under her breath. Broadcasting meant every ship within a few light years would detect it. In the drift, that meant pirates, scavengers, and worse. She reached for the shutdown sequence but hesitated. 3 years of her life had gone into understanding that ancient alien power core. 3 years of failure after failure. And now, purely by intuition, by following a hunch that made no logical sense, she had cracked it. The galaxy said this was impossible. The Treaty of Perpetual Stasis had forbidden research into unlimited energy systems for 3,000 years. The Galactic Concordat's official position was that such technology would destabilize civilization. Had always thought that was just politics, powerful species keeping everyone else in check. Now she held the proof that they were wrong. Her research station was small, barely 10 rooms bolted together in the middle of nowhere. She'd chosen the drift precisely because no government controlled it. Out here, she could work without the Concordat's regulations strangling every experiment. Earth's corporate labs had fired her for being recklessly creative. The Concordat had her research permits 17 times, so she'd gone where neither could stop her. The proximity alarm chimed. 3 ships incoming fast. Computer, identify. Unknown configuration. Weapons hot. Time to intercept 4 minutes. Pirates then. They must have detected the energy spike and thought she'd found something valuable to steal. They had no idea what she'd actually created. Station had minimal defenses, just enough to discourage small-time raiders. Against 3 ships, she had no chance. She looked at the micro-singularity again. It pulsed gently, contained but not controlled. She had created it by routing power through the alien core in a pattern that violated every known law of physics. The pattern had come to her in a dream, which was absurd. Science didn't work that way, except it had. 3 minutes. Made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. She began rewiring the containment system, her hands moving faster than thought. If the singularity could generate infinite energy, could it also discharge it? The math said no. Her intuition said yes. She trusted her intuition. The pirates opened fire at 200,000 kilometers. Kinetic rounds and plasma bolts hammered against her station's shields. The first shield layer failed in seconds, kept working, sweat dripping down her face. She had no military training, no weapons experience. She was making this up as she went along, following hunches that would make any proper scientist laugh. Second shield layer critical. She slammed the final connection into place and activated the discharge sequence. Nothing in her calculations told her what would happen next. Nothing in galactic scientific literature even suggested this was possible. The microsingularity pulsed once, twice, then released. An expanding sphere of pure energy erupted from her station, moving at exactly the speed of light. It wasn't an explosion. It was more like space itself. The wave passed through the pirate ships and kept going, visible on sensors as a perfect sphere of impossible physics. Every ship it touched went dark. Engines died. Life support switched to emergency batteries. Weapons systems failed. The pirates drifted, powerless and helpless. Station remained lit. The singularity had recognized its creator somehow, or maybe she'd just gotten lucky. She pulled up long-range sensors to see how far the pulse had traveled. 3 light minutes and still expanding. "Oh no," she whispered. At 3 light minutes, there was a Dominion patrol ship. They were one of the galaxy's oldest powers, proud and arrogant, with 12,000 years of spacefaring history. They'd been part of the Concordat since its founding. They enforced the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis with cold efficiency. The ship had been watching her station. She realized that now. They must have detected her experiments weeks ago and been monitoring her, waiting to see if she'd actually break any laws. Now their ship was dead in space, disabled by human technology that shouldn't exist. Sat down hard, her legs suddenly weak. She had just humiliated one of the galaxy's great powers. She had proven that the treaty's restrictions were lies. She had shattered the illusion that the ancient species knew everything. With one accidental discovery, one desperate defensive act, one human following her gut instead of the rules, she had broken 3,000 years of carefully maintained balance. The communication system crackled to life. The pirate's emergency channel, still functioning on backup power. "What the hell was that?" a rough voice demanded. "What did you do?" Before could answer, another voice cut in. This one was cold, precise, and spoke in the clicking language of her computer translated. "This is Commander of the enforcement vessel Eternal Vigil. Human, you have committed an act of technological terrorism against a Concordat military vessel. You will power down your station and surrender immediately. Failure to comply will result in your execution once our systems are restored." His hands shook as she brought up the communication panel. "Commander, this was self-defense. Pirates attacked my station. I had no choice. You employed forbidden technology. You have violated the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis, Article 7, Section 3, Research into Unlimited Energy Systems. The sentence is death or permanent exile. There is no appeal." "I didn't mean to." "Intent is irrelevant. You have demonstrated that humanity can bypass restrictions that have maintained galactic peace for 3. You have upset the balance. You must be eliminated." The connection cut off. Sat in the darkness of her station, listening to the hum of her impossible creation. The micro-singularity pulsed steadily, waiting. Around her, half a dozen ships drifted powerless. Within hours, they would restore their systems. They would call for reinforcements. They would make an example of her. She thought about Earth, 47 light-years away. Humanity had only joined the Concordat in 2800, barely a generation ago. They were the members, the youngest species, treated with polite condescension by powers that had crossed the galaxy while humans were still living in caves. Earth's government was terrified of offending the older species. They would never protect her. They'd probably hand her over themselves to avoid a diplomatic incident. The proximity alarm chimed again. Another ship, this one alone, approaching slowly with weapons powered down. "Research station, this is the freighter Distant Sky. Don't shoot, I'm here to help." Frowned, "Identify yourself." "Names, I've been tracking your research for 6 months. That pulse you just released. That was beautiful, that was revolution. And you're about to die for it unless you let me dock." The Collective was another ancient power nearly as old as They were traders, diplomats, information brokers. They rarely took sides in anything, checked her sensors. The approaching ship was small, unarmed, definitely not military. "Why would you help me?" "Because I'm tired of living in a galaxy that's been frozen in time for 3,000 years. Because the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis is a cage, and you just proved the bars aren't real. Because every young species that joins the Concordat gets crushed into mediocrity, told to obey and stay small and never reach too far. You just reached, human. You reached and touched something that was supposed to be impossible." Made another decision. "Docking port 3, you have 5 minutes before the restore power." Ship was fast. It locked onto the station and cycled through docking in 3 minutes flat. The who came through the airlock was small, barely a meter tall, with iridescent scales and too many eyes. She carried a bag that looked military grade. "Pack everything related to your research," said without preamble. "All your notes, all your equipment designs, and if you can, that power core you've been using. We need to leave now." "I can't just abandon my station." "Yes, you can. In 10 minutes we'll have power. In 20 they'll call for backup. In 2 hours this entire sector will be swarming with Concordat ships. They're not going to arrest you. They're going to erase you and pretend this never happened." "Why do you care?" Multiple eyes fixed on her and saw something unexpected there. Hope. "Because 8,000 years ago my species tried to develop technology beyond the treaty's limits. The Concordat crushed us. They scattered our colonies, bombed our research centers, and rewrote our laws. We've been neutered ever since, trapped in a role as traders and middlemen. Every species that gets too ambitious gets the same treatment. The treaty isn't about peace. It's about control." "Then why help me? Won't they punish you too?" "Probably, but you did something no one has done in 3. You proved they're not omniscient. You showed that the restrictions are arbitrary, and you're human, which means you don't know any better than to try impossible things." His expression might have been a smile. "That's your species' superpower. You don't know when to quit." Looked at her research station, at 3 years of her life built into these walls. Then she looked at the micro-singularity, still pulsing with impossible light. "I'll need help moving the containment unit." "Already on it." They worked in silence, racing against time, downloaded every byte of data, packed every piece of equipment she could carry. The alien power core went into a shielded container. The micro-singularity, incredibly, seemed content to be moved as long as was the one doing it. At 8 minutes, ship detached from the station. At 9 minutes, the warship's engines flickered back to life. At 10 minutes, as they jumped into faster-than-light travel, watched her research station disappear behind them. She felt the weight of what she'd done settling onto her shoulders. She hadn't just broken the law. She'd broken the galaxy's most fundamental rule. She'd proven that humanity could do what the ancient powers said was impossible. She'd broken the balance, and she had no idea what would happen next. Set a course toward the galactic edge, away from Concordat space, away from Earth, into regions where the treaty's enforcers rarely patrolled. "Where are we going?" asked. "Somewhere they won't find us immediately. Somewhere I can introduce you to others who've been waiting for someone like you." Glanced at her with those too many eyes. "You started something today, human. Whether you meant to or not, you lit a fire. Now we need to decide if we're going to let it burn or try to control it." Looked down at her hands, still shaking from adrenaline. She was a scientist, not a revolutionary. She just wanted to understand the universe, to push the boundaries of knowledge. But the galaxy had decided that some knowledge was too dangerous to pursue. They decided wrong. "Let it burn," she said quietly. His expression definitely was a smile this time. "I was hoping you'd say that." Behind them, across the galaxy, the news was already spreading. Sensors had recorded everything. The energy pulse, the disabled ships, the human researcher who'd achieved the impossible. Within hours, the Galactic Concordat would issue an emergency session. Within days, every power in the galaxy would be hunting her. Had become the most wanted person in the galaxy, and her real journey was just beginning. The balance was broken, and nothing would ever be the same. The safe house was on a planet called Threshold, right at the edge of Concordat space. It was barely habitable, with toxic air and crushing gravity that made its bones ache. Most species avoided it. That made it perfect for hiding. His contacts had arranged everything. An underground facility, shielded from sensors, stocked with supplies. And people, so many people, stood in the main chamber, staring at representatives from 24 species. Some she recognized from Concordat records. Others were completely unknown, species that had apparently stayed hidden from galactic civilization. They all watched her with expressions ranging from hope to suspicion, to outright fear. "This is the human?" asked a towering creature covered in crystalline plates. She looked so small. "Size means nothing," said sharply. She did what all of us only dreamed about. She broke through. An elderly being that resembled a floating jellyfish spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "She also made us all targets. The Concordat issued a Type 1 extinction warning. Any individual, organization, or government that aids her will face complete sanctions. Earth is already in crisis. Their government has disavowed her. They're claiming she's a rogue actor, mentally unstable, acting without humanity's knowledge or approval." Felt that like a punch to the gut. She'd expected it, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. Earth was throwing her away to save itself. "They're cowards," someone muttered. "They're pragmatists," the jellyfish being corrected. "Earth has only been in the Concordat for 47 years. They have no power, no allies, no leverage. Of course they'd sacrifice one scientist to avoid angering the Dominion." "Then Earth deserves what's coming," another voice said. This one belonged to a like but older with scars across his scales. "The Concordat will make an example of them anyway. They always do. Humanity's membership will be revoked. They'll be isolated, sanctioned, cut off from the galactic economy. In a generation, they'll be begging to rejoin on whatever terms the Dominion offers." Found her voice. "Why? I'm the one who broke their law. Why punish my entire species?" The laughed bitterly. "Because that's how the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis works. It's not about punishment. It's about control. If they let humanity keep their membership after one of you broke through the technological barriers, other young species might get ideas. They might start pushing boundaries too. So they'll crush Earth as a warning. They've done it before. 17 times in the last 3,000 years, the jellyfish being added. 17 species that showed too much potential. Some were bombed back to pre-industrial ages. Others were simply cut off and left to wither. 2 were completely eliminated." The chamber fell silent, felt sick. "I didn't want this," she said. "I was just trying to understand how the power core worked. I didn't mean to start a war." "No one ever does," said gently. "But you did something important. You proved they've been lying. The treaty claims that unlimited energy systems are fundamentally incompatible with organic neural architecture. That organic minds can't comprehend the mathematics needed to stabilize quantum entanglement across 7 dimensions. But you did it." "By accident." "By intuition," interrupted. "Which is even more important. You didn't calculate your way to the answer. You felt your way there. That's what humans do, isn't it? You guess. You improvise. You try things that shouldn't work until something does." The crystalline being leaned forward. "Is it true that your species evolved without any environmental stability? That your climate shifted radically every few thousand years?" Nodded slowly. "Ice ages, warm periods, volcanic winters. Our planet was constantly changing. Species that couldn't adapt went extinct. And humans adapted by becoming generalists," the being continued. "No specialization, no evolutionary niche, just flexibility and problem solving. Every other species in the Concordat evolved for stability. We perfected specific survival strategies over millions of years. Our intelligence developed to optimize and refine. But humans, you developed intelligence to handle chaos. That's why you broke through," the elderly jellyfish said, and there was wonder in its voice. "The Concordat's restrictions work on species that think logically, that build knowledge through careful incremental steps. But humans don't think that way. You leap. You intuit. You try absurd things and somehow make them work." Remembered her dream, the pattern that made no logical sense but had cracked the power core's secrets. "I don't understand how I did it. I can't even explain it properly. The math doesn't work on paper." "That's the point," said. "Every species in this room has been trying to break the treaty's technological barriers for centuries. We've failed because we're playing by the rules, even when we're trying to break them. We're thinking inside the box. Humans don't even see the box." A small reptilian creature spoke up, its voice nervous. But this changes nothing if she's the only one who can do it. One human with one discovery can be eliminated. The Concordat is hunting her right now. 3 fleets have been mobilized. They'll find her eventually. Not if we spread the discovery, said. The idea had been growing in her mind since they'd fled her station. Not if everyone has access to it. The room erupted in argument. Some species shouted in favor. Others yelled that it would cause chaos, that war would consume the galaxy, that billions would die, waited for the noise to die down. The Concordat maintains power through information control, she continued. They decide what research is allowed. They classify technologies as permitted or forbidden. They've convinced everyone that certain things are impossible, but it's all lies. The universe doesn't care about their laws. Physics doesn't respect their treaties. You want to just release your research, the crystalline being asked, to everyone. Yes. That's insane, someone said. That's revolution, said, and she was smiling. The elderly jellyfish floated closer to. You understand what you're proposing. If every species suddenly has access to unlimited energy, the balance that has maintained peace for 3 will shatter. Old conflicts will reignite. Species that have been oppressed will seek revenge. The Concordat will fight to maintain control with everything they have. I know, said, but the alternative is letting them continue to strangle progress. How many discoveries have been suppressed? How many brilliant minds have been silenced? The galaxy has been frozen for 3,000 years. That's not peace. That's stagnation. She's right, they said. We've all been afraid for so long, we forgot what it means to move forward. Maybe it's time to remember. The Dominion has dreadnoughts, another voice warned. Ancient weapons from before the treaty. If they feel truly threatened, they'll use them. Then we'll have to be ready, said. She pulled out her data pad and began transferring files. Her research, her notes, the complete schematics for the micro-singularity generator, everything she'd learned in 3 years of unauthorized experiments. She created a transmission package designed to spread through every communication network in the galaxy. Once I release this, there's no taking it back, she said. Every species will have access to technology the Concordat has forbidden. Some will use it for good. Some will weaponize it. There will be chaos. There will be freedom, said. Looked around the chamber at all these beings from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different dreams. They'd all been suppressed in one way or another. They'd all been told to stay small, stay quiet, stay in their assigned places. She thought about Earth, throwing her away to save itself. She thought about the commander's cold certainty that she would be eliminated. She thought about 3,000 years of enforced mediocrity. Help me set up a distributed relay, she said. I want this to hit every major world simultaneously. I want it on public networks, military channels, research databases. I want it everywhere at once. They worked through the night. Hands flew across her data pad, with the others setting up relay points across dozens of systems. They used every contact, every illegal communication node they could access. The network they built was messy, but it would work. At dawn on Threshold stood before the transmission console. One button, one choice, one human decision that would reshape the galaxy. Any last doubts? Asked quietly. Thousands admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. She pressed the button. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, in hundreds of languages, the transmission arrived. Scientists saw the impossible made possible. Engineers saw designs that violated everything they'd been taught. Governments saw their control slipping away. The Concordat saw their worst nightmare becoming real. One human had given the galaxy fire, and she had no idea if they'd use it to cook or to burn everything down. Within an hour, the Concordat's emergency channels lit up with panic. Within 3 hours, the Council of Equilibrium called an unprecedented session. Within 6 hours, Three major powers issued declarations of intent to pursue independent technological development. Treaty be damned. The balance was broken. In the safe house on Threshold, alarms began screaming. Ships were jumping into the system. Lots of ships. "They found us," someone yelled. Ran to the sensor station. Two fleets, one and one from a species called the Hegemony. They must have triangulated the transmission's origin point. "We need to evacuate," said. "Where?" asked. "Where can we go that they won't find us?" "Deeper into the unknown regions. There are places out there, old colonies, hidden worlds, places the Concordat never mapped. They'll follow us forever." "Probably, but every day we stay free is another day for your discovery to spread. Every day is another species starting to build their own singularity generators. They can't put this back in the box. You've already won." The building shook as the first bombardment hit Threshold's surface. The facility's shields held, but wouldn't last long. They ran. 24 beings from different species, fleeing together toward ships hidden in underground hangars, carried the alien power core and her research equipment. The original micro-singularity was still running in its portable containment unit, pulsing steadily like a second heartbeat. Ships launched from Threshold under heavy fire. Half of them were destroyed before they cleared the atmosphere. The ship, with a board, made it through by luck and desperation. They jumped to faster-than-light speeds with missiles seconds from impact. In the chaos of fleeing, watching beings she'd just met die to protect her felt the full weight of what she'd done. She'd wanted to understand the universe. She'd wanted to push boundaries. She'd gotten her wish. And the galaxy was paying the price in blood. "Don't," said, seeing her expression. "Don't blame yourself. This was always coming. The treaty couldn't last forever. Someone had to break it eventually. Better it was someone who did it for knowledge rather than power. People are dying because of me." People were dying under the treaty too. Slowly, quietly, as entire species were held back from their potential. This is just faster and louder. Wasn't sure if that made her feel better or worse. They jumped from system to system, staying ahead of the pursuit. Had contacts everywhere, safe houses and supply caches scattered across the galactic edge. But the Concordat was mobilizing everything. Bounties were posted, rewards for information, death sentences announced for anyone harboring the human terrorist. Earth was in full crisis. The planetary government had fallen. Riots broke out in every major city as humans debated whether was a hero or a villain. Some wanted to surrender her to save humanity's place in the Concordat. Others wanted to follow her example and declare independence from galactic law. Watched the reports from her small quarters on ship and felt responsible for all of it. On the 7th day of running, they received an unexpected message. It came through encrypted channels from someone claiming to be a Concordat Council member. "Doctor, I know you're listening. My name is Counselor Thane. I'm reaching out against direct orders because you need to understand what you've done. The architects have been awakened." Had never heard of the architects. She looked at who had gone completely still. "Who are the architects?" asked. "A myth," said quietly. "A conspiracy theory. The idea that there's a secret coalition of the galaxy's absolute oldest species, the ones who were exploring space when most current civilizations were still evolving. The theory says they wrote the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis to maintain their control, but no one has ever proven they exist." The message continued. "They exist, Doctor, and they're not happy. The treaty was their design. They've kept the galaxy stable for 10,000 years, carefully managing technological progress to prevent existential threats. You've shattered their control in a single week. Now they're deploying assets that haven't been used since the galaxy's prehistory. Ancient dreadnoughts, reality-warping weapons. They're going to make an example of Earth, unless you surrender yourself and all your research immediately." The message ended. Felt ice in her stomach. They're going to destroy Earth. "It's a bluff," someone said. "It's not," said grimly. "If the architects are real and they're moving openly, then everything is worse than we thought. They're willing to commit genocide to maintain control. Then I have to surrender." "No," grabbed her arm. "If you surrender, they'll erase you and your discovery both. They'll use advanced technology that the rest of us don't have access to. They'll rewrite history to say you never existed, and Earth will still be destroyed as a lesson. So what do I do?" "We fight, we find allies, we spread your discovery faster and farther, we make it impossible for them to control." His multiple eyes were fierce. "You broke the balance, now we have to build something new before the old powers crush everyone into submission." Looked at the alien power core, at the micro-singularity that had started everything. She thought about her small research station, where she just wanted to understand the universe. She thought about how one human following her intuition had torn the galaxy apart. She made her choice. "Then let's fight." And so the real war began. The dreadnought arrived in Earth's solar system 3 weeks after released her research. It was enormous, the size of a small moon, built with technology that made current Concordat ships look like children's toys. It had been sleeping in dark space for 5,000 years, waiting for a crisis that threatened the architect's control. Had become that crisis. Earth's defense fleet, patched together from 47 years of Concordat technology transfers, moved to intercept. 60 warships, humanity's entire military space capability. Against the dreadnought, they looked like insects attacking a giant. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The dreadnought didn't even use conventional weapons. It deployed something the architects called an equilibrium engine, a device that could rewrite local physics. One by one, Earth's ships simply stopped existing, not destroyed, not disabled. They ceased to have ever been there, removed from reality itself. When the fleet was gone, the dreadnought transmitted a message to Earth. "This is Architect Primary. Humanity has violated the Treaty of Perpetual Stasis in the most severe manner possible. Your species has been judged incompatible with galactic civilization. You have 1 week to produce and all her research. Failure to comply will result in the sterilization of your... This is not negotiable. This is not subject to appeal. You have 1 week." Earth panicked. Every government on the planet immediately denounced, declared her a criminal, and begged the Concordat for mercy. Some offered to hunt down their own colonies to find her. Others proposed permanent restrictions on human technology development. Anything to survive. Watched the transmission from a hidden base in the outer reaches, 300 light-years from Earth. She watched her prepare to grovel and die, and she felt rage like she'd never known. "They're going to kill 8 billion people because of me," she said. "They're going to kill 8 billion people because those people let them," corrected. Earth could fight. They could refuse. They could evacuate who they can and scatter humanity across the galaxy. Instead, they're on their knees begging. "What can I do? I'm one person." "You're one person who changed everything." Pulled up a holographic display. It showed the galaxy in 3 dimensions, with thousands of markers lighting up in different colors. "These are confirmed reports of species that received your research and successfully replicated it. In 3 weeks, over 400 civilizations have built working micro-singularity generators. The architects can't suppress them all. Some are using the technology for peaceful purposes. Some are weaponizing it. And some are fighting back against Concordat control." Saw the map and understood. Her discovery had sparked rebellion across the galaxy. Young species, tired of being held back. Old species, tired of being controlled by those even older. Even members of the Concordat itself were defecting, scientists and engineers who'd been suppressed for too long. "It's chaos," she said. "It's freedom," replied. "Messy, dangerous, unpredictable freedom, and the architects are terrified. That's why they're making this move against Earth. They need to prove they're still in control. They need a victory that will make everyone else fall in line." Then I'll give myself up. Stop saying that, snapped. They don't want you. They want everyone to see that defiance leads to extinction. If you surrender, they'll kill you and Earth both. They'll use you as an example of what happens to individuals who break the rules, and they'll use Earth as an example of what happens to species that produce such individuals. Then what's the solution? We make it impossible for them to win. We coordinate every species that's building your technology. We turn this from scattered rebellion into organized resistance, and we go to Earth not to surrender, but to defend it. Stared at her. You're talking about war, real war, against beings that can rewrite physics. I'm talking about survival, for Earth, for humanity, for every species that wants to control its own future. His expression softened slightly. You broke the balance. Now you have to help build what comes next, but you can't do it alone. Over the next 6 days, they worked nonstop. Messages went out through the network of rebellious species. Engineers shared modifications to his design, ways to weaponize the micro-singularity generator or shield against the architect's reality-warping technology. Scientists from 100 worlds collaborated on solutions that would have taken centuries under the treaty's restrictions. Humanity's creativity became their template. Don't calculate the answer, feel your way there. Don't wait for permission, try it and see what happens. Don't respect the rules, find the spaces between them. It was chaos, it was messy. Half the experiments failed spectacularly, but the half that worked changed everything. Ships began arriving at Earth. Not Concordat vessels, but independents, rebels, species that had decided the treaty's peace wasn't worth the price of perpetual stagnation. They brought their own modifications of technology, their own weapons, their own desperate courage. By the 7th day, Earth was surrounded by a fleet of 300 ships from 40 different species. It wasn't organized. They had no unified command structure. Some of the species present had been enemies last month, but they all shared one thing. They refused to let the architects make Earth an example. Was on a ship called the Defiant Purpose, hastily retrofitted with technology that violated every Concordat regulation. She'd helped design its shields, its weapons, its power systems. It was barely holding together, but it could fight. The architect dreadnought detected the fleet and transmitted again. This is Architect Primary. Unknown vessels, you are violating Concordat military exclusion zones. Withdraw immediately or be eliminated. A captain named answered. This is Free Fleet Commander. We don't recognize the Concordat's authority. We don't recognize the treaty. And we sure as hell don't recognize your right to exterminate an entire species for one person's discovery. If you want Earth, you'll have to go through all of us. The dreadnought's response was immediate. The equilibrium engine activated. Space itself twisted. Ships began vanishing, removed from reality like they'd never existed. 10 ships gone in seconds, 20, 30. The architect's weapon was overwhelming. But had been studying how it worked, using that same intuition that had cracked the power core's secrets. The equilibrium engine didn't actually rewrite physics. It imposed a localized reality field, convincing the universe that things should exist differently. It worked because organic minds couldn't process the contradiction. Unless you were human and comfortable with contradictions. All ships with modified singularity generators activate on my mark, transmitted. Route power through your containment fields in the pattern I'm sending you. It won't make sense. The math won't work. Do it anyway. She transmitted the pattern.